Listen to this video clip of comments that Superintendent Keith Lewis made on November 22nd at a school board meeting in regards to this book titled The League of Superfeminists.
In terms of the book, The League of Superfeminists, that book has not been in the hands of DCSD employees. We have books in our libraries that don't ever make the shelf, but are accessible if a student with parental permission want access to a book.
On November 9th, about 2 weeks before Superintendent Keith Lewis made those comments at the November 22nd school board meeting, I saw this book, The League of Superfeminists, at the Pawalu Middle School Library on a shelf displayed like this for students to see. And it was in a place that was accessible to all students, so parent permission to access the book was not required, as was indicated it would be by Keith Lewis at that school board meeting. Let's take a look at the contents of this book. I know that this video is about critical race theory, but I wanted to show one of the pages in this book that has to do with radical gender ideology. It says this: these gender boxes are stupid for plenty of different reasons. First, biologically, there aren't just two options. Yeah, that's not going to cut it since there are dozens of other possibilities. And then this page says this: when we're born, society chooses a box, boy or girl, for us. And even if it makes us uncomfortable because it's a bad system, most of the time we deal with it and don't feel the need to change the box we're in. Then it shows a doctor looking again, vagina, penis. Then there's a little girl that says, I'm so sick of dolls. So the insinuation is here that if you don't like to play with dolls as a girl, you might actually be a boy. Down here it says, but sometimes it's unbearable and it feels like we've been put in the wrong box and we realize we need to change it. And then this little girl says, I'm not a girl. I'm actually a boy. I'm not a girl, it was a mistake. This book, Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters by Abigail Schreier, makes clear what even the New York Times is now admitting. That is that teens requesting cross-sex hormones are vulnerable to peer influence, vulnerable to irreversible fertility loss, may be in emotional distress, and may detransition. And this was news that was obvious 2 years ago, but they wouldn't print it. This girl, Penny, is an example of what happens when trans influencers indoctrinate young people. Double mastectomy at 15, detrans 16-year-old now seeks reversal. Very shortly after surgery, my depression got worse. I hated myself just as much as ever, leading me to a psychiatric hospitalization in October of 2019. All right, getting back to the critical race theory part of this book, The League of Superfeminists, it says this about privilege. In a system of oppression, there are two groups of people: those who benefit from it, the oppressors, the white ones here, as you can see, and those who suffer under it, the ones being oppressed, the people of color. All right, here's another page from this book, The League of Superfeminists, and it says this about racism. Racism equals white people have privileges and people of color suffer because of it. So basically, white people are racist with privilege. And I'll tell you something, when you teach that to kids, they don't feel happy like this. See these white kids all smiling? No, what they feel is guilt. But yes, I do think people of color feel like this when they're told that they're marginalized victims in a system of white oppression. They get angry. On the next page of this book, after it's made clear who the racist oppressors are, it says this: but in truth, these systems of domination aren't natural. They've been constructed for centuries so that the people on the top can continue to dominate the people on the bottom. In other words, so that they can keep their privilege. In my